we were pissing neon green every day.
That big ball of heat in the sky was too much.
I thought there was a
bear.
Reality goes, yeah, fresco. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, everybody. What's up, everybody?
Welcome to
Welcome to
StouryTime.
StouryTime.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to StouryTime with John and Friends. I'm your host, John. Today's guest recently released his new album, Creator, on August 23rd via Smart Punk Records. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Elliott Douglas from the band M.A.G.S. Hey, Elliott, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's I've actually been wanting to get on this for a while, so here we are.
Very cool. It's a pleasure to have you, man. It's been a minute. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Man, yeah. I'm trying to think of the last time. It might have been like at a traditional show or something.
That's very possible. Yeah. And it's been I don't know, like 7, 8 years since we played. So
Has it been that long already?
yeah, it's been quite some time.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I left Buffalo in like the beginning of 2018. So
Okay.
we're in 2024 now. So coming up on 7 years, I think, since I left.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. It's weird to like think about it in that sense because like I spent so much time in Buffalo and like I know so many people there, but like I don't really go back that much. So I
Right.
have no idea what's going on there at this point.
Are you well, I live in Buffalo and I have no idea what's going on. So to be fair.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you still in LA?
No, I actually left LA at the end of last year. And I live in Kansas City, Missouri now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Was there a reasoning behind that?
I mean, yeah, at a certain point, I was definitely starting to fall out of love with LA, and just like my life there was very, uh, just kind of felt empty, honestly. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
being really far away from family, and it's like you have friends, but it's hard to stay connected in LA. It's kind of it's weird if you don't live there, and when you do, it's like you want to stay in touch, but you just like can't. I don't know. It's really strange, but um, my partner and I, she lives in New York, or lived in New York, and we'd been doing the long distance thing for a while, and she had recently quit her job and was able to land something here in Kansas City, so we decided to just make the move.
That's awesome. Very cool. Congratulations on all your success over the years. I was, doing a little digging aside from my usual listening to M.A.G.S, but I didn't realize Drugs had over 25 million plays on Spotify.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. Dude, congratulations. That's
Thanks, man.
amazing.
Honestly, it barely registers in my brain as my song at this point. Like, it's kind of weird to maybe say that out loud, but like, it doesn't feel like a song that I wrote. I don't know. Like, it's it's a song that, like it is one of the reasons why people found me, and I think it at this point is so ingrained into people's algorithms that it's just one of those songs that has sort of surpassed any expectations I could have had for it when it was written. But it was definitely one of those songs that just sort of fell into my lap one day, and I don't think I have any other songs that even sound similar to it.
Hmm.
And I think it's also one of the only songs where the lyrics are just sort of kind of just like bubblegum, whatever. It's like I have no real like personal experience that equates to that song, or like they're just words to me.
Okay. Yeah. So there's no like emotional attachment to the words.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back a little bit. For those of you watching and listening that don't know, Elliott used to play bass in the band The Malones.
Oh yeah.
How was the transition going from The Malones to M.A.G.S when you started writing your own stuff?
The transition itself was pretty rough. I won't lie to you. I think when I was in that band, I had a lot of very high expectations for like what we were gonna do. Um, and I had been in, I don't know, maybe like 5 to 6 other bands prior to joining Malone's, and like uh, I think it was just sort of a lightning in a bottle kind of situation. I
Mm,
didn't know what was gonna happen when I just kind of like I remember I DM'd Steven and I was just like, I have a bass. I would love to come try out. And we kind of just as soon as we all got in the room, it was like, okay, this is a thing.
yeah.
Uh, and from that point on, it was like, Steven and Brandon both kind of had like their own audiences from various projects that they had been in. And I think I was primarily known as a drummer in Buffalo at that point too. So like stepping out of my comfort zone and playing bass was more so just fun for me. I wasn't really like I didn't expect anything. But I think at our first show was at you remember that venue, The Vault?
Yes. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like the DIY one, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
at like Art Space or whatever. But that was like our first show, and there was like 150 people there, something crazy.
Yeah.
It was like all the like people, like the like everybody was there. I was like, I can't believe I couldn't have paid these people to come to any of the shows for my other bands, and like they're all here under their own volition. I thought
Hmm.
that was like, okay, like this actually is something. Um, but when that came to an end, it was definitely disappointing. And it took me a long time to like decide what I wanted to do next. I was kind of like messing around with some other like, just some friends who were doing some stuff and, trying to find a new spot to fill, I suppose. And at some point, I think I just kind of got tired of that like feeling that like, okay, if I join another thing, it could just come to an end again, or
Right.
like this all just sort of feels like it's going nowhere in a way.
Hmm.
So I'm like, well, if I'm gonna go nowhere, then I might as well go nowhere under my own, like, it'll be my fault, you know.
Yeah. It'll be
Uh,
in your own hands. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's a better way of saying it. But I think you know, I remember I decided that I wanted to start writing my own songs, and I immediately hit up Paul Besh,
Hmm. Shout
and I
out
went,
Paul, friend of the show.
"Paul, yes, uh, Rest in Power, Quiet Country Audio. Um,
Yes.
but I hit him up immediately and I was like, I want to record 2 songs like 3 months from now. I want to book the time and I don't have anything written right now, but I'll see you in August, basically.
Hmm.
And so I gave myself, I think like 3 months to like write 2 songs, which was plenty of time. Um, and I think at that point it was just like I kind of just took what we were doing at the end of Malone's and kind of like made it into my own thing. It's like, well, what if we had kept going, what would what was like kind of my projection of like what we would sound like, I guess. The last stuff that we were doing like with Malone's was very like technically like a little more like technically challenging or like a little heavier, I guess.
Hmm.
And I was kind of like more interested in doing stuff that was more in kind of like the pop realm at that point. So I kind of took some of that, like I took some of the like breakdowns and the like whatever, and I kind of added the stuff that I thought was a bit more marketable, I guess. Like all unconsciously, I wasn't like doing this like, oh, I'm gonna take the sound and I'm gonna make it like more marketable. I wasn't thinking that. I was just like, I like listening to music that has some pop sensibility to it,
Right.
and stuff that we were doing wasn't really like that. So kind of just took pieces of each.
Hmm. So, how does it? How is your writing process? How does that go? Because I mean, you're not a guitarist, you're a drummer. You're not a drummer, you're a bassist. It's very frustrating to watch you as a drummer
Sure.
because you're so talented across the board. So, what's your writing process like? Especially because like listening to the recent release, the Sequence 7, like that's mostly, you know, did you just do this all on yourself, like everything at home, or was this, a group effort, anything like that?
Sure, yeah. So that sounds like a bit of a multi-layered question, but I
Yes.
think to start, it's like my writing process is kind of like it's kind of this ongoing like generating ideas and like just getting little pieces and then just kind of putting them into the vault essentially. Um, I very rarely sit down and write a full song like in one shot. You know, a lot of my songs are like bits and pieces of ideas that I sort of collect in my voice memos or just, in Ableton or whatever, I'll just be kind of like sitting down and maybe have an idea, like a melody or like a guitar idea, and I'll just put it into my phone and then it'll just sit there for however much time until I need it again.
Hmm.
I'm actually right now in the process of kind of getting ideas together for my next album and just already kind of just like, okay, like what do I have? Like just
Right.
kind of taking inventory, so to speak. Um, but yeah, it usually starts with like guitar. I think just because guitar is the most convenient instrument, I can just pick up and grab one.
Yeah.
I don't I did a lot of writing behind the drums at one point just because I felt like the most comfortable back there. Some of my early stuff I would like literally play drum grooves and just be thinking of melodies. And then I would usually do the bass after that.
Hmm.
And the guitar was last. And I would say I even maybe prefer to write like that because I think again I tend to feel a little more at home on the drums. I can get my ideas out a little more articulately. Guitar is something I really like had to work to learn, so it doesn't feel as natural as like guitar or even I'm sorry, it's drums or even like bass. But um, the most recent stuff that I've just put out, like the Sequence 7 and the album that's coming, that was all made off of acoustic demos. I know I had originally had the idea after doing Destroyer that I wanted to do like an acoustic version of that album. And originally it was going to just be me in my apartment, just like literally recording the acoustic guitar and then singing, and that was going to be it. Um, and I had the, instinct to just be like, well, I feel like I can do more than just that. I think if I'm going to do an acoustic album, I don't want it to just be kind of like a phone it in kind of like generic acoustic record that anybody could do. It's like I want to make it something that like is very like very mags, like subvert
Right.
expectations, And so I hit up my buddy who also plays guitar in my band, Ahmed, and he lives in Chicago. And I pitched the idea to him. I'm like, I want to make an acoustic album and I'm gonna make it really fast and I want you to be a part of it. And this was like basically like the first time that I had invited somebody into my creative process. Um, the song's already being done, but then like the instrumentation, I thought it would be cool to enlist somebody who, I perceive to be just like head and shoulders above me in terms of like their musicianship.
Hmm.
He went to school for jazz and like is just one of those people that can just pick up any instrument and figure it out and play the most beautiful shit you've ever heard within 5 minutes. Um, so yeah, when I got to Chicago, we kind of listened through the demos, and again, I kind of just went there saying like, I'm gonna just record these and we can kind of fill them out instrumentally. And he starts kind of being like, well, this is kind of what I had in mind. And he shows me some like funky, like very off the beaten path kind of like references. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can really hear it, like how you can combine these two things, but I'm willing to try it out. I think within the first few hours, it's like we had his roommate in there, like adding drill beats, and like we were just like doing all kinds of like really weird stuff. And yeah, I think those first few days was a lesson in trusting the process. You know,
Okay.
I was very like I was trying to be cool about it, but I was like I was white knuckling and I'm like, oh, this is so weird. I don't know how people are gonna respond to this.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that's kind of what I wanted, and I had to trust that like this process is going to result in something different and something that is going to push me as an artist, and ultimately it's like I want to like it, but I also want it to connect to other people, and the album itself is like it's so eclectic, I guess would be a good way of
Okay.
describing it. It has so many different elements and so much stuff that I never could have done on my own, you know. And I think, with the new song that just came out, it's like I wrote the song and I had the seed of the idea of like what I wanted it to feel like, but a lot of the instrumentation, a lot of the like composition was Ahmed and his roommate Micah, I kind of let them like run free on some of those instrumentals and um, it came out the way it came out at this point. So
Very cool.
yeah.
It's funny hearing you talk about it because um, like over the years with your musicianship, it's very obvious that you like to step out of your comfort zone, whether you like subconsciously do it or not. Like with, you were a drummer, then you stepped out to do bass, and then, after Malone's ended, you started playing guitar to write your own stuff, and then now the way you're writing your music is pushing you in a direction where you aren't in your comfort zone the way you typically would be. So it's pretty interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I feel like to me, staying in my comfort zone, I might as well just not do it. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't really excite me to like make an album that I've already made. Um, I think, well, that's the problem is actually I think too much. I'm always kind of like in my head about like, okay, well, have I already done this? Like, are people gonna hear this and be like, oh, this reminds me of another band or like another whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, I think people have definitely had a hard time like placing my sound because it sounds like a lot of other stuff, but it doesn't sound like any of those things like specifically, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I try to pull in all of my influences and uh, utilize them in ways that maybe are, unexpected to people. It's like I might like some of my favorite bands growing up are like Under Oath or like like Circus Survive. Like those are two big, really influential bands for me at a time. And then when I moved to LA, it's like I started getting really into hip hop, and I met a lot of people who put me on to a lot of different kinds of music, and a lot of that started to work its way into my sound, to the point where it's like I felt like I would be doing myself a disservice by not experimenting at least with that stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, if I can like take a little piece of this like Playboy Cardi song that I really like, and I can add it to this kind of rock thing that I'm doing, then we're on a completely different like path now, and like this
Yeah.
is uncharted territory.
As long as it's not like the Lil Wayne rock record.
Yeah, no, I think
Just
I think
messing.
the I think the having taste is sort of the trick there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just messing with you.
Course.
Stupid joke. Um, Now, I gotta know what is the meaning behind MAGS, like the name.
Well, it stands for marijuana and good sex, right? So it's an acronym. I had to make that up essentially because originally the name was just MAGS, like just M-A-G-S. And when I was signed to Admirable Traits, shout out Mike Moretti. When I was signed to them, it was kind of like there is still currently another artist in Canada that uses that name. Um, and he was like, well, what do you want to do? Because like, you want to change your name? You want to change the spelling? And I'm like, I don't want to do any of those things. The name is Mags and it has to be Mags. So I think I might have been in the shower. I've told this story a couple of times, but I was in the shower and I was like, I'll just make it like NERD, like Pharrell. I'll just make it an acronym.
Yeah.
And I called him when I got out of the shower and I was like, it's gonna be an acronym. He's like, okay, well, does it stand for anything? And I think I just literally blurted it out and I was like, marijuana and good sex. And he was like, okay. And it was kind of like an inside joke for a long time. I didn't really advertise the band as marijuana and good sex. Um, but as time has gone on, people ask me a lot. So I kind of just like I put it on t-shirts before and I just kind of make it. It's part of the lore at this point, I guess. If you know, you know. But yeah, just it's a funny kind of thing that doesn't really like mean anything, but it definitely gets people's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. It's smart, quick on your toes there with the acronym. That's funny. Let's see, what do I got here? All right, so I kind of want to jump into some tour stories here. If you have any, I asked you to maybe think of some that you wanted to potentially share. What do you got for me?
Wow. Yeah, it's funny. Like I haven't actually done like too many like tours. Like we're gonna be going on one this October, like a pretty short one, just back from LA, back to the Midwest. But I'm up to about I think 6 or 7 tours at this point, just in the history of the band, being a live band, and definitely been through some shit. A lot of it was like we were touring pretty heavily during COVID, so there's some pretty wild COVID related tour experiences. The very first tour we did was in 2021. It was like a full national, full sold out tour with this band called the Happy Fits. Um, and I think it was like we we were I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks long, which for a first tour
Dude,
was
that's huge.
insane.
That's long no matter what. But for
Yeah,
a first tour, you're gonna learn really quick whether or not you're cut out for it.
we learned everything on that tour.
Yeah,
Like
I'm sure you did.
we learned everything. But it was basically like it started in Baltimore too, and my whole band was in LA, so we had to like drive all the way to Baltimore from
Hmm.
LA, which was insane. And I mean, yeah, there was a lot of things that went down on that tour. We didn't have our merch for like the first, I think, week and a half to 2 weeks, and then when we did finally get it, we sold out like the first or second night. Um, it was a whole mess, and I had
So,
to.
what was the reasoning behind that? Just like shipping, or
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like you keep missing it. Like they were going to ship it. It was supposed to be in LA. We were supposed to take it across the country, but it missed us by a day. So they had to reroute it to, it was going to meet us in Milwaukee, and then we missed it by a day, and then it was going to meet us in Baltimore, and we just kept missing us. So
yeah.
I think we finally got it yeah, like a week or so in Vermont. And then when we played that Vermont show, it was like everybody wanted merch and we sold out. And we just didn't have enough. I don't know if people, the people who were in charge of ordering the merch were quite aware of how rabid the fans were going to be for that tour. So
Right.
lesson one learned. But one of the craziest parts of the tour was we played. I think we were about 2.5 weeks in. We played Bowery Ballroom in New York, sold out, amazing. One of my favorite shows of all time. Um, and then we kind of just started heading back towards the Midwest, and we had like I think 5 or 6 shows kind of in like the Midwest area. We got to I think we got to Chicago, played one night, sold out at Sub T downstairs, amazing. The next night we played another place. I don't remember what it was called at this point, but my drummer Robbie was like, he had been not feeling good for a couple days. He was like, I'm just like the most tired I've ever been, Lee, we kept saying. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, I think it's just like general, he called it tour fatigue. And I was like, I don't know if that's a thing, but okay. I think that's just called being tired.
Yeah. That's
But
called COVID.
yeah, we didn't know it, but we played the second night in Chicago, and then we had this kind of whole convoluted plan of how we were going to get to the next show. It was in Minneapolis, and two of my guys, one guy lives in Milwaukee, the other guy, his girl came down from Davenport, Iowa, and they were going to stay in Chicago. And then Andy, who's the guy who lives in Milwaukee, he went back to Milwaukee for the night, and we were going to all just meet up in I forgot where we were going to meet. I think Madison, Wisconsin. Like they were all going to drive up to Madison and meet us so we could all go to Minneapolis together. And so Robbie and I were going to drive to Madison and get our like hotel and just chill for the night. And as we're driving, he's like coughing really hard, and it sounds like he's like almost like he's blowing into a whistle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've never heard a cough like this before. And I was like, dude, I think you need to like take a test because like that doesn't sound good. And we had to drive, I think like 30 minutes out of our way to find the only open CVS within like 100 miles. Take a test in the we both took tests in like the parking lot. His was positive, mine was negative. He's really upset because it's like, the middle of the tour and like, he's the drummer, so it's like, what do we do
Yeah.
basically? Um, I think I ended up driving him somewhere else in Wisconsin, and then I think I ended up getting to our B&B or hotel in Madison at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and then we had to be on the road. I had to be on the road again by like 9 or something, but get a couple hours of sleep. And then I just, I told the other guys like that were in Chicago and Milwaukee respectively. I was like, just sit tight because like I don't know what to do now. I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go and play this show in Minneapolis. I'm gonna go play solo. Um, I get to Minneapolis. It's like a 4-hour drive, and the bassist from the opening band also has COVID when we get there. So they play acoustic, I play acoustic, and then the headliner does their thing. The day after the Minneapolis show, I think we have a day off, and I have like we have like a B&B, like this beautiful like 5-bedroom like B&B,
Mm-hmm.
and the opening band they had put their bassist in their hotel room, so they didn't really have a place to stay. I'm like, you guys obviously can come stay with me. So it's just us, and we're just chilling, and the next day I get a phone call basically saying that the drummer from the headlining band also has COVID.
Oh my
So
goodness.
at this point, the tour is just like completely, it's just like stopped dead.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other thing with the touring is it's like, if you're not playing shows, you're not making money, So there's about 2 days, I think, that we're off before we need to be, um, I don't know where we were. I think we were supposed to play. I think we might have supposed to play Kansas City, and then we were supposed to play somewhere else, like in this general area. Um, but those two shows ended up getting canceled. Um, I had the idea. I ended up calling the headliners, call their manager, and I was like, if you guys like want to keep touring, I'll open the show solo, and then I'll drum for the headliner band. Like I'll learn their set, and
Yeah.
I'll play drums just so we can keep playing shows. Like maybe we can do a shorter set or like something, but like, I just don't want to like I don't want to lose money. I know you guys don't want to lose money, and like I want to play these shows. I'd rather play the shows than stay in this hotel, I guess,
Right.
So that's basically what we do. I am basically just like driving by myself for a few days. We went to I think our first show like that was in Denver. The other guys had met with me at some point. They just, just to keep going with me, so that eventually the plan was eventually when Robbie tested negative, he would meet us in Seattle. But we had to play Denver, Salt Lake City, and I think it was just Denver and Salt Lake City where I was playing solo, and then playing with the headliner. Um, and then when we got to Seattle, I was still playing the drums for them. I think I played 5 shows total as the drummer for the headliner, which was honestly so fun. I don't really get to play drums like that anymore.
Yeah.
And getting to like I think by the second or third show, like I was like really comfortable like with those guys, and like they didn't play to a click or anything. It was all very like rock and roll. I was kind of adding my own flair on things, and they were, it was a really, really, really fun experience. And then I think by the time we got to LA, everybody was back, and like, the opening band, like their bassist had tested negative, and like the drummer for the headliner was back as well. And we played like 2 sold out nights at Terragram, and it was just like a total blowout. It was amazing.
It's awesome.
Um, yeah, so that was kind of like, the rest of the tour after that was fine. Like nobody got sick anymore, and like we made it. But that was definitely like one of the more challenging things to figure out. Um, and yeah, I don't know. That was just like whenever I think about that tour, I think about how like I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I literally saved the tour. Like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you did.
like there's no question. Like I saved the tour. That would have been over if I hadn't done that. So
Absolutely. So when when you would get to a venue or anything, were they like testing everybody each day, or
they were
was it
supposed
kind of just like
they were
on your own
supposed to.
volition?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was 2021, so like it was pretty strict, like
Yeah.
compared to like maybe the next year. But like, we were supposed to be masking up. We weren't supposed to like jump into the crowd or anything. And like if we were, talking to like the fans or whatever, like we were supposed to wear masks, and like we mostly would. And there was a little bit of it that was just kind of like out of our control.
Hmm.
Everyone was trying to, use hand sanitizer and wear masks and just reduce contact, but there's just so many variables when you're on the road that it's hard to like really monitor that stuff unless you're like kind of you know just in the green room, in the van, in the hotel room, on stage. It's like you can't really control it,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
and that's not like, I don't know, any tour I've done or been a part of, like cleanliness is not that easy on a daily basis.
No, it's really
Especially
not.
when you're like an opener, when you're not making the big money that the headliners are making. So, uh, yeah, you didn't get it on that tour. You never caught it.
I didn't get on that tour, but the next tour we did, we went out with this band Oso Oso,
Okay.
and I think 3 shows in, I got it. And I was the only person on that tour to get sick, but that was like we were in Toronto, and I think we played Buffalo, which was pretty tight. We played Pittsburgh and then Cleveland, and then when we got to Toronto, we went from Cleveland to Toronto. When I got to Toronto, I was like, my back started to hurt really bad, and I was just like kind of like shaky. I was like, I feel kind of like I don't know if I'm anxious or if I'm just like didn't sleep
Off.
well last night. Just
Yeah.
off, yeah. And maybe like 30 minutes before we played, like everything just got like really intense. And I was like, I don't know if I can play. Like I feel really bad right now, you know?
Hmm.
It was mostly just like it was like the aches and pains were just like shredding my body. Um, but I just was like, okay, well, this is like my Michael Jordan flu game. I'm just gonna go up there. I'm gonna push through it. It's gonna be fine. Like no one's gonna tell. No one's gonna be able to tell that I don't feel good. And I did it, and it was a great show. And then I remember we went to the hotel that night, and I remember like getting in the bathtub, which I like never do. I was like, I just need to like my body just feels like absolute shit. Like I just need to like soak in some warm water.
Hmm.
Um, Woke up the next morning, couldn't touch my toes. Like my head was just like it felt like it was this big, and I like
Hmm.
could barely put my shoes on. And I think we ended up stopping at a convenience store, and I was able to find like a test, and I tested, and it immediately was like positive, and I was like, "Yo, this sucks."
Yeah.
So I ended up in we had to drive out of Canada, obviously, but like I got dropped off at a hotel in Romulus, Michigan, of all places, which is like an hour outside of Detroit.
Okay.
And I was there for 10 days,
Mm,
just like stuck.
that's so long,
Stuck.
dude.
It was so long. And I was watching a lot of football at that point. I don't really like give a shit about football, but the Bills are doing really well at that point. So I was just like really invested in what they were doing at that point. I don't know. It was like I guess this was like November, so it was right when the season had kind of started to ramp up. But um, yeah, I was there for 10 days. I took a negative test and then flew to Seattle. When I landed, I took another test and that was positive again. Um,
What?
yeah, it was weird.
So you got a false negative?
Got a false negative and then flew, got to Seattle and it was positive. And then, it was just kind of like a thing where like we were supposed to play Vancouver and then Seattle. And, the guys weren't really comfortable being in the van with me for that long,
Yeah.
me still testing positive. So I actually drove up to Vancouver by myself and played the show solo. Like everybody on the touring party was clear. They're like, we're not gonna. You can have your own green room. Like you just play and then go, basically. So I went up there and I played the show just by myself. I stayed in this like insanely creepy B&B. It was like it was like a dollhouse, and it was I don't know, it's like I think I might have just been like experiencing some like leftover symptoms, but I was like tripping.
Yeah.
Like it was
The vibes were wild.
the vibes were absolutely abysmal. I
Were you
was
seeing shit or?
Yeah, dude, I was like I took videos because the place was like so clean and so quiet. Like I had to turn all the lights on. I had to like open all the doors. I had to like turn the TV on just to like get some kind of like just something happening because I was
Yeah.
like, someone's gonna come out of the corner and kill me, or like I'm gonna like the walls are gonna come to life and swallow me or something. It was so trippy.
Yeah.
But I woke up the next morning and I tested negative, so we were able to finish the tour and it was fine.
Nice.
But yeah, a lot of COVID stuff. Um,
When
just
you real quick before you continue, when you played Buffalo on that Oso tour, did it feel like a hometown show? Like kids went off or like because you've been so far removed from Buffalo. So when
Mhm.
you do come home and play, does it feel like a hometown show or does it just feel like you're visiting and you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was honestly like one of the only times that I've played Buffalo since I've moved away. I went back once in 2019 and I played a show at Milky's,
Yeah.
and I just like straight up had a panic attack on stage and like ended the show early and like walked off stage. It was very dramatic, but I'm also having problems with I was borrowing a guitar and it just like shit the bed like in the middle of the set, and then I was
Mhm.
borrowing a guitar that was like not set up, so I couldn't even really play it. I'd also like ripped a humongous fatty off my weed pen right before, so I was like not in a good way before we played. But that's neither here nor there. uh, but yeah, I think that Oso show was really sick. It was like the first time that my parents and my family got to see me play with like my real kind of band. Um, and it's like I don't really know what a hometown show feels like anymore. Those are like a ton of people that I had never met before that were there that knew all the words to my songs.
Mhm.
I'd say there was probably more people there that I didn't know that were into mags than people that I invited that didn't show up.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was just kind of like,
And he remembers all of you. No.
no, I didn't take it personally. It was like on a random Tuesday or something.
Right. Yeah.
Also, it was at that venue downtown on Chippewa. I can't remember what it's called.
Rec room.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's like the new waiting room.
yeah.
And like it's great, it's fine, but it's definitely different vibes. That's all. That's all I'll say. It's different vibes because of Chippewa.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of funny. I remember there was like a couple years where like all the venues started to close,
Hmm.
and it was sad, but it was also like, okay, well, what's next?
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel like there weren't really too many options that like came up after, it's like we lost Mohawk Place for a while, Sound Lab closed down, Waiting Room obviously was a big one. You know,
Tralf closed.
Ralph, the
Yeah.
Vault is one of my favorite places to play ever, and it
Yeah.
didn't last, but.
But now all
Uh,
these places are popping back up. Like the Tralf is under a new name now. I forget what it's called. But that's being used again. Now we have Rec Room, which Rec Room is fun on they do punk rock karaoke, like live band punk rock karaoke still. And when they do it, it's like it's weird. It's just such a different like vibe and setting from what you're used to at Waiting Room when it was just like, oh, this is the punk venue. You know what I mean? Now
Yeah.
that it's on Chippewa, it's like you get these college kids that like you would never see at Waiting Room, upstairs at the studio, just going nuts for My Chemical Romance or something. While someone's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's definitely a different vibe, but it's still great. It's still a good time. It's just very different
Yeah.
from what everyone was used to.
I think I had put a lot of expectations on that show because it was like my first show like back in Buffalo after, I think at the time it was like close to 5 years.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think I was just worried that like nobody was gonna be there.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't that at all. I think I ended up like even crowd surfing at one point just because it was lit.
Hell yeah.
But it was definitely, I think I was like, as soon as I can get over this show, I can play this show, and then the rest of the tour is gonna be easy. Um, it wasn't easy, but it was definitely like a mental block that I had of like, okay, like I'm playing my hometown for the first time in 5 years. Like what's it gonna be like, you know?
Hell yeah. So I cut you off. You were going to continue on to another story, I believe.
I was let me think. I'm trying to think. 'Cause, like, there's always stuff that like happens on every tour where you're just like that's crazy. But I'm trying to think of like the best stuff, you know.
Was there any like fun, strange, weird, funny, cool fan interactions that are like really memorable to you?
Funny, strange, cool fan interactions.
Like any of those? Not all one. That's impossible.
Let me think. I think a really funny one was somebody in Phoenix wanted me to sign their vinyl, but they wanted me to actually sign like
The
the
vinyl.
actual vinyl. And I was like, this is gonna ruin it, right? He's like, yeah, but I want you to do it. And I was like,
Fair.
paid for this, so I can't tell you what to do. I'll put Sharpie all over it if you want, but it's gonna be completely useless after this. I hope
That's
you
funny,
understand
man.
that. It was kind of silly. I don't know. It's like people come to the merch table and it's always you never know what you're gonna get, you know? Especially when it's like you're opening for another band. Like when we went on a tour with Sleeping with Sirens, which was insane. Just to even be able to say that.
Hmm.
But
Weird tour to jump on too.
weird, but kind of made a lot of sense. Like when
Yeah.
we were actually doing it, it didn't feel weird. Like my newest record is sort of like adjacent to that stuff anyway,
Yeah.
so like it worked. And we got a lot of like really positive feedback from people who had never heard of us, you know. But I think that was kind of what I was going to say. It's like, there's all the people who were like my age who were at the Sleeping with Sirens shows that had seen them on Warped Tour, and then you got like the new like kind of tweens who are like just finding out about them and they're just as hardcore as like the people who have been listening to them for 10 years. It's like it's cool that like that sound, that particular sound is still alive. And like I think it's even made a bit of a comeback in the last couple of years where a lot of these bands who like we grew up with and like were super influential for us like are still touring, which is crazy, but
Yeah.
also like they have this influx of new fans. And like even I guess like people bringing their kids to those shows. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
like 33-year-olds bringing their kids, like, oh, you're gonna love this band, and then it's Sleeping with Sirens. It's like very strange, but it's good. I'd say it's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny too because like all those bands that we grew up listening to that aren't doing it anymore, like they're
Mhm.
all back doing it now because everybody's celebrating the 20 years of whatever record. Under Oath doing they're only chasing safety 20 years. Like
Yeah.
nothing makes me feel older, but I mean it's still really cool to be able to go see that stuff too. But
Yeah, definitely. I think once we start getting into like 30 years and if they haven't hung up by then, I don't know what we're gonna do. I think I don't know.
yeah, no, that's I mean, there's some bands out there doing it. What isn't like Korn going out on their 30 year this year?
I think at some point you sort of transcend everything. It's like you're a legacy band, but it's almost like you're starting to sort of infringe on like the Rolling Stones territory. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you've been in the band longer than you haven't been in the band, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That Rolling Stones is a whole different thing. That's the dude, they've been in the
It's
band almost as long as they've all been alive, which is
like they're going for
ridiculous.
like a record or something. It's
Yeah.
like the world record for longest longest band ever. I don't
They
know.
have it. They have it. It's
They
there.
have yeah.
Yeah. Um so you did a audio tree live. How was that?
Dude, that was a bucket list thing for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. People always comment like, and on that video, they're like you guys didn't stop playing. Like you just played all the way through. You didn't like do the interview or anything. And I don't know if people get confused, but like we were doing an audio tree live, which is essentially like an
A
audio
live
tree.
set.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
without an interview. It's like we basically just went in there, we played our set, and we were done.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's a little bit different than when they bring you in and you're doing like a session per se. That they'll do like 3 Auditory live sessions in a day, but
Right.
know how many of the other ones because they take more time because they are doing the interviews. I would like to go back one day and do like a follow up and maybe do the thing with the interview one day if they'll have me. But just being in that studio, and like just getting to meet everybody and just kind of seeing how the sausage is made. It was very surreal. And ironically, that was actually basically doing that session. That was how I got linked up with Sleeping with Sirens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
How explain? I'm sorry. Explain how.
uh, we did the session, and I think Kellen is just like a big fan of Audiotree, and he saw my session and then was like, "Oh, this is dope," and then just started to kind of dive into my albums, and then I think he shared one of my songs in his story, and that was how we got connected.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm thankful to be able to say that like I got to do an audio tree, but also thankful that the opportunities, that have come from that, and I think also it's like, um, it's again, it's just it's a bucket list thing, you know what I mean? It's like I've
It
always wanted
it's
to do that, and
it's
I
one of
don't
those things that I regret we never got to do because
sure,
it
yeah,
was like we were hell bent on making it happen, and we just could never get it to work out. But yeah,
definitely. No, I feel you. I always wanted to do like a day trotter session. I don't know if they still do those, but
yeah, I haven't heard anything from Day Trotter in years.
yeah, it's safe to say they probably don't, but that was always like I was like the little animated photos that they would do too.
Yeah, yeah.
It was,
For like the little record covers or whatever
yeah,
on yeah, that's sick.
maybe they'll bring
Uh,
it back today.
yeah, you guys got to get on. What is it? Tiny Desk.
Yeah, I actually feel like that's bound to happen. I feel,
Yeah,
I actually just did an interview with NPR a couple weeks ago, so I'm hoping that maybe that's a little foot in the door. We'll see.
there you go. Yeah, let's fingers crossed on that one for sure.
Definitely.
Um, what was it like to see and hear your music played on television shows? Because I know
Hmm.
there was like what 1 or 2 shows that your music was on.
I think there was 4.
4. Okay, so there's
4.
some that I'm not even aware of.
Yeah, so The Flash was the one I think most people know.
Yeah.
That one was like I'm not a huge fan of that particular show, but I did watch that episode and it's kind of just playing in the background at like a bar, I think.
Hmm.
Cool, fine. Um I think the Shameless one I think was
Yeah.
probably the most like surreal because it happened the song comes in at such a huge part of the season.
Yeah.
um, and I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but it's season 6, episode 9, which is really easy to remember. Um,
Hell yeah.
yeah, you get me. But that was surreal, I'd say. Just 'cause that's a show that people actually watch. And like
Hmm.
people will still like DM me or text me and be like, dude,
Yeah.
Shameless. It's like it's been years, buddy. Like, but it's like
Yeah.
it's still kind of like something that people can like, oh wait, I know that. That's my guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely like a cool little thing to be able to say that I had like a tiny little piece of Shameless history.
Yeah. That's so cool.
And then the other ones, I think they used one of my songs in an episode of Teen Mom on MTV.
Okay.
Uh, and then there was this show that was on, I think ABC Family became this network called Freeform.
Yeah.
Uh, and they had a show called Famous in Love. I think Bella Thorne was like the star of that show.
Okay.
And they used one of my songs on that show as well. I think California. Um,
That's awesome.
It's really funny, actually. I actually met Bella Thorne. I used to like hang out at their place the first few months I moved to LA, and like I remember meeting her for the first time, and I was like, it's crazy. Is one of my songs was on one of your shows, and I like showed her the clip. She was like, "Well, that's trippy." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Very trippy,
That
like
is trippy.
very very trippy." Yeah,
That's crazy. So the traditional was on one. Well, I should say two, but they were both sports.
Okay.
The first one was a close friend of mine and the band, Dave Courtney. He does the filmography for the Florida Panthers, who coincidentally just won the Stanley Cup. When he does all the the pre and post game interviews with the players, what he would do is he'd throw music that he likes in the background, just the instrumentals. So he threw the traditional in one of those, and then the one that we didn't know about that we you would have thought we won the lottery. We weren't a band anymore at the time. Like we didn't officially break up, but we just were on hiatus. We didn't, we weren't out there. No one knew what was going on with us. We didn't even know. The Bills had a primetime game, and it was against the Steelers. Josh Allen threw an interception, and right before commercial, they played our song "Disaster."
Whoa.
And it was this is amazing, but also why disaster? Why now? You know what I mean? Right after an interception, we're God. But the moment was I'll never forget it because it was during COVID, so there was nobody in the stands.
Yeah.
Me and my wife, we were sitting upstairs and we're watching the game, and it comes on. I was like, right after that, I got a shitload of texts, phone calls from people. They're like, "Did you know? How did you make this happen?" We're like, "Dude, I have no idea.
No idea.
We had no idea." So that's one of those little clip things that I saved on my phone because I was like, "This is just the coolest thing that'll probably ever happen to me in my musical career."
Honestly, it's sick though. It's I mean, the Bills mean so much to Buffalonians, of course, and to have a little piece of that is,
dude.
Even if it's just a bite, that's
Especially with the amount of money that I've invested into them with season tickets and Anthony with season tickets and jerseys and all that shit, So
they owe you.
They finally paid us back. No,
It's the least they could do, honestly.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite city to play in?
Wow. My favorite city to play
And
in.
talk shit about all the other. No, I'm kidding.
No, I could. Okay, so New York City is always been good to Mags. They always go absolutely crazy when we're there. I don't know if it's just because I'm not from New York City, obviously. I didn't really play there very much either. When I was in Buffalo, we never actually made it down to the city to play before I moved. But yeah, New York is always just tight. I think it's just I think my sound is just kind of resonates with New York,
Yeah.
And I think what's cool about doing well there is that so many shows, every tour goes through New York, and so to get people excited about going to a show in New York to me is very, very special because New Yorkers don't give a shit about anything for the most part.
Right.
So that I think that it means the most when I play a show and people are receptive and interact and everything. I've gotten recognized on the street in New York a few times as well, which is really trippy. In the subway,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I lived there for a few months early this year, and somebody had walked up to me and they're like, "You're Mags." I'm like, "How the fuck do you know that?"
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Very strange. I think LA too. I think LA has sort of claimed me as far as as far as things go. It's for all intents and purposes, I'm an LA band at this point. That's how most people recognize me. Even though I'm living in Kansas City, it's I still rep LA for the most part. So I'd say those are probably two of my favorite places. I think I've had some of my best shows in very unexpected places. Reno, Nevada.
Okay.
Was absolutely bonkers, dummy lit, insane.
Just
one
kids
of my-
going nuts for you? What was so special about it?
Yeah, we sold out a show at this place called the Holland Project last year. I did an album preview tour. Before I dropped Destroyer, I was just I'm gonna just play a bunch of new songs, and if you guys want to hear them, you should come to the shows. And that was enough to get people to basically, I think, sell out 5 of the 8 shows that I played, which is like I'd never done a headlining tour before. So for for these shows to be sold out was incredible. But yeah, Reno was I think the first one that sold out, and uh I don't know, like I remember there was a part at the very end of the set where like my one guitarist, like he had never crowd surfed before, I guess. And we both like I would crowd surf after almost every show. Or like during the last song, I would just like jump in and it would be this kind of moment at the end. So uh we had been talking about it like prior, and I'm like, dude, you should just do it. Like just do it. Don't even think about it. And there's like a moment right before we were about to jump in, but he just looks at me and I look at him and I just give him like a nod and we just jump in together. And it just goes into this like breakdown essentially, and it's just like and we're just like just stepping on people's heads, and it was just very chaotic. I had like hung from the rafters in that show at 2. It was very, very chaotic. I was like I'm still honestly a big fan of like the Chariot. Like that was like a humongously influential band for me growing up. So like uh I've always just like appreciated how hard they go for their live shows,
Hmm.
and I try to bring a little bit of that into Mags like when I perform.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Uh, I had I had a guest on from this band called God's Eyes. That this is a little, I'm getting sidetracked here, but uh, they're called God's Eyes. Check them out. They're very Chariot reminiscent, and they kind of go nuts, when they perform as well. Which is it's a breath of fresh air, just because they're the scene is longing for that Chariot band to exist again. So
Yeah, or Title Fight, either of those.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although, have you listened to Glitterer?
I've listened to it a little bit. Yeah, it's cool. It's like definitely a different vibe,
Yeah,
but it's very cool. I feel like the band that we toured with Oso Oso, the band that opened Anxious, like they're kind
yeah,
of like carrying the torch. Also, Fiddlehead was another band that I just saw recently that like has a lot of that same kind of like energy, as Title
right.
Fight. I didn't actually like I didn't get into Title Fight until like long after they were broken up. But it was like they're one of those bands that's like I feel intrinsically connected to them just because of like how like I don't know, just the passion of like what they do live, I think is just like I connect with it really heavily.
Right. Um, so we're winding down here, coming to the end of the podcast, but I do want to ask you just a few more things here. Looking back at what you've accomplished so far, because I mean, you are a workhorse. You're always writing, you're always releasing new stuff. I mean, what the longest you've gone is 2 years with the between releases, really? Well, maybe 3. You've just released so much music. It's crazy.
There's so much that I don't release though, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, you're always working so hard and releasing so much. Like, from what you have so far and what you've done and accomplished so far, what are you the most proud of?
Hmm. It's kind of hard to choose because I feel like, all of my projects have lessons for me in them. I know with my self-titled album, that was the first album that I ever mixed on my own. That was the first time that I ever really kind of like took a chance on my own ability, and it was like, let me just see if I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it was just out of necessity because it's like I wasn't making a ton of money and I couldn't really like afford to have someone record and mix my album and master it. So I'm like, let me just see if I can like do some of this myself and get the sounds that I want. Um, and even though like I had to rebuild my computer like in the middle of mixing that album because my CPU couldn't handle it. I was like, okay, like I'll teach myself how to rebuild computers right now. Um, and then I had to rebuy all my plugins. It was a very like tedious process finishing that album, but like I finished it and it was like, wow, like cool, I did it. Um, and then Say Things was like, uh, that was the first time that I allowed myself to do more than uh just kind of be like a rock band essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was in Malone's, and I remember like when I would write with Steven, like he would say stuff like, if we can't pull it off live, then it's not going on the record, you know? It's like, so we can only have like essentially like one guitar, one to two vocals, or like three vocals, because the three of us could essentially sing, Um, and that was kind of it. Like there's nothing else. And that was the approach that I took with my self-titled, but with Say Things, it was during the pandemic. I wrote and recorded all of it during the pandemic, and I was like, I don't have anything to lose. I don't know if I'm ever gonna play a show again. I might as well just like let it rip.
Mhm.
And I think honestly, I think those are some of my best songs. I think the production is like very uh it's like it sounds homemade in a good way to me. It has a little bit of polish, but it's also just very lo-fi, very like grassroots, and I think it sounds like me.
Yeah.
And again, like pushing myself outside of like the rock thing the whole time. It's like there's elements of hip hop in there. There's like, slower songs, there's ballads. Um, and there's tons and tons of harmonies, which I think I was like a little reluctant. I'm like, I know harmonies, I know how to do harmonies, but like I don't want to like flex. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna flex. I'm gonna just do as many harmonies as I can stand. Um, and then with Destroyer, it was like I really like some of the old like Equal Vision, like Tooth and Nail bands. Like I like this kind of like post-hardcore thing, and I've been sort of leaving it out of my sound.
Hmm.
So let me just go back to that stuff. Let me do stuff that has odd time signatures. Let me do stuff that has screaming in it. Like let me do like more riffy stuff,
Hmm.
like heavier, harder stuff that I actually like and makes me feel like me. Um, and we talked a little bit about creator at the beginning. It's like, let me do something that is so outside of my comfort zone that it creates a new zone that I can exist in. Um, so I guess I don't know if I have an answer to your question, because I don't really think um I favor one over the other. They all taught me something about myself, and they all taught me more about music and production. And I think with every project that I've done, I've had to really like deepen my trust in my ability. Um, and you know, I don't know. I'm just, I guess I'm proud of myself, even though like I do tend to struggle with like a lot of self-doubt and a lot of like anxiety about, you know, the direction of my career, or like
Yeah.
what I'm trying to accomplish with all this. It's like, when I look back, I can just be like, I did that, and I did that, and I did that, and I did that. This is all like hard proof that like I can do it, and I will continue to do it. Um,
Yeah. It sounds like what you're trying to say is growth.
yeah,
Your
yeah,
growth as not just a musician, but you as a person, with your writing and everything you've been through and continue to go through in your career and everything else. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I think Mags really to me is sort of like the kind of embodiment of my human experience, you know, and this is sort of my way of sharing my experience with everyone else. Um, and it feels cringe sometimes to be that vulnerable and share and be that like exposed. Um, but fuck it, you know.
I love that though. That's what makes you unique and to yourself and the music that you're writing. But yeah. Um, lastly, future. What's in your future?
Oh man, the future is constantly changing. I think I right now, I just turned 33 this year, and in some ways, I think I believed that I was gonna be a little further along than I am, if I'm being totally honest. And I don't mean that necessarily with music, but just like in my day-to-day kind of like Elliott Douglas life.
Hmm.
And so this year I've been spending a lot of time just like trying to figure out like what I want, like what kind of person I want to be, and how I want my life off stage to be structured. And um I think moving to Kansas City has been a very eye-opening experience, not being in a city with a lot of distractions and a lot of like, entertainment and just all the stuff that I guess you would equate, you know, you know, big city life to be. It's like I'm in like a suburb essentially, and I'm surrounded by trees and grass and
Hmm.
bugs and there's just like not much to do here and it's kind of tight, it's like there's pretty good food. I don't know anybody. I have barely any friends. Um and I'm just like, wow, like I'm just it's just kind of a reset, you know? So I'm kind of taking that and using it to my advantage and just and trying to learn more about like Elliott Douglas. I've
Yeah.
spent like probably close to 6 to 7 years. Well, 10 years really, because MAG started in 2014. I spent the last 10 years like putting everything that I have towards MAGs into MAGs and investing in like the career stuff. Um, and then when things change and some things don't go the way you expect them to, and it's like, okay, well, what do I have? Like, who am I? You know,
Hmm.
um, I'm asking myself those hard questions now and trying to figure it out. So yeah, the future I think changes kind of on like a monthly basis. It's like a couple weeks ago I wasn't sure if I was going to do a tour, and now I'm doing a tour. It all kind of fluctuates as it needs to. Um, but I think generally speaking, it's like the next step right now is to just keep making albums. Um, I've got another project in the works right now that I'm again just kind of like still figuring out what it's gonna be.
Hmm.
Um, this is like the most exciting part for me though, when I don't know what the next step is. It's like I
Yeah.
kind of thrive in this environment where it's like there's just endless possibilities. It's like I could do like a post-punk album, or I could do like I could do something that's so like outside of like what I know, and then I could just do it, and that'll be that. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to be in this spot where I am right now, where things are a little loose. And once things start to become more clear and I kind of figure out my direction, um, there's no stopping at that point.
Absolutely. Well, Elliot, it was great catching up with you.
Likewise, man.
Anytime you want to come on the show, reach out. I'd love to have you back. Anything you've got going on you want to promote, now's the time.
Well, I got the tour coming up. I'm going to be doing some West Coast dates from August, I think 14th until I don't know, I don't remember the dates, but we're gonna just be doing like mid October. Um, I also have a cover of an American football song coming out very soon. I think around the same time, October. We didn't even really talk about that. I'm actually opening for them in LA in a few months. That was kind of a wild experience, like meeting them. That was just like talk about two ends of the spectrum, like doing a tour with Sleeping with Sirens and then also playing with American football. It's like
Hmm.
there's not a lot of overlap. There's a very thin line
Yeah.
called Mags between those two bands. But yeah, I that's gonna be I'd say definitely like a bucket list kind of show.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. Um, and yeah, the album Creator comes out August 23rd. It's gonna be unlike anything that you've heard from me up till now. Um, and yeah, I'll see you next year mostly.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking around, listening to the episode. Everything that Elliot has going on will be down below in the description. I'll have links and all that stuff in there. Make sure you check out his new record, Creator. By the time this is released, it's out now. So make sure you go listen again, go see him live in October, buy merch, tell a friend, do everything you can to help support him and his music endeavors. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye, bitch.